Hello and welcome to the EFN Presents review of Season 4, Episode 4, Daring Don't. Joining me today I have from the Blue Screen Bronies, Draco.
Hey, how's it going?
And Vyraal.
Yo.
Thank you for joining us here today.
It's okay, it's great. I mean, it's just Pony episode. Pony's back. Pony drought is over. It's great.
They actually forced me to do this. I'm actually here against my will. How?
Shut up and record. That's all you're good for.
Oh, alright.
Well, this is another episode from longstanding writer for the show, Dave Polsky, who also wrote episodes such as Feeling Pinky Keen, Over a Barrel, Too Many Pinkie Pies, and Games Ponies Play. And one thing a lot of those episodes had in common is that they focused on one character in particular. And that's what we have here today. Daring Don't is really a Rainbow Dash episode. In this episode, Rainbow Dash is distraught at the news that the next Daring Do book is going to be delayed. Upon hearing that Twilight might be able to track the author down, Rainbow Dash believes they should go to visit her and offer their assistance so the book can be released on time. Despite Twilight's protests that the author probably just wants their privacy, they go to visit the author A.K. Yearling and find her house ransacked. Despite the mess, the author declines their help and the main six leave just in time to see three ponies break in and confront the author, who turns out to be none other than Daring Do herself. The ponies manage to steal an artifact from Daring Do, and Rainbow Dash decides to follow her to help her get it back. Unfortunately, Rainbow Dash's help does nothing but get Daring Do captured. Wanting to give up, the main six convince Rainbow Dash that Daring Do needs her help, and together they hatch a plan to free Daring Do and stop the villains before they complete a spell that would cause 800 years of unrelenting heat. Daring Do learns that everybody needs help from time to time, Rainbow Dash learns something, and for her trouble gets an advanced copy of Daring Do's next novel. We've got a lot going on in this episode. We've got Daring Do, we've got Rainbow Dash, we've got Arizodal, we've got new characters, new locations, new villains. General impressions, what did you guys think of this episode?
Oh, wow. I got a very weird vibe from it. I mean, it's like standing in a convention hall somewhere and just watching someone famous walk by. Oh my god. Did you see that? So-and-so walked by. I need to go lick the ground now. It felt like it was a little weird at first, and then at the end it was like the lesson that could have been learned, that should have been learned, kind of seemed like it was backwards a little bit.
Well, are you saying that the lesson was more for Daring Do on learning to work with people rather than Rainbow Dash learning not to not excessively fangirl and invade people's privacy?
Just a bit, because it was kind of like Sombra a little bit, where she had the problem of putting her idol up on a pedestal so high that she became a god, and we don't really see time to resolve that, but we see Daring Do have more time accepting help. It seemed more of a, you say Rainbow Dash episode, but to me it seems like more of a Daring Do episode more than a Dash episode.
Yeah, I agree on a number of those points, and we'll get into them a little deeper later. Vyraal, what did you think?
You know, I have to agree with a lot of the points Draco made. I mean, when you think about it, this episode was really good, had a lot of nice Indiana Jones references.
So many Indiana Jones references.
But, I don't know, there were some parts that made me cringe, like Rainbow's excessive fangirling, like Draco said, reminds me of some parts of a convention. And not just a pony convention. I mean, I've been to Star Trek conventions, I've been to Comic-Cons. It's everywhere. Yeah, try going to a Star Trek convention when you're 6 years old.
Star Trek and Star Wars. Oh. Conventions in general, I'm not poking fun at bronies or even gamers. Every fandom does it. Every fandom has those over-excessive, overly obsessive nerds and geeks, and it's whatever. I mean, just whatever.
Being such a major factor in this episode, I think that's something we need to look at a little closer. Now, some people were saying that Rainbow Dash is a parody of herself, or they went over the top with how enthusiastic she is, I guess we'll say. Now, going back to even the Grand Galloping Gala episode, we've always seen Rainbow Dash fangirl over the Wonderbolts. Back in Read It and Weep, she immediately fell in love with the book, so this isn't anything new for her character, and we definitely see her put the energy she really takes to everything in life and apply it to the things she's interested in. So what do you guys think? Is this out of character for Rainbow Dash, or is this fitting with what we've seen of her character so far?
It fit. They probably could have gone a little further, but, yeah.
It's Rainbow Dash. She always excessively does everything. I mean, excessive, like, what was it? The Buccaneer Blitz is supposedly so amazing that they can't show it on TV.
When I was watching the episode, I was thinking, oh, out of character, and then, Ramble, you brought it up. That's actually not that out of character for her fangirling. Her first introduction in the series, she's fangirling over the Wonderbolts.
Yeah.
Well, remember the whole the Super Speedy Cider Squeezy, how awesomely excited she was about the cider that she's willing to camp out?
Camping out for cider, yes.
She got there extra early and Pinkie Pie's first in line in a tent. Hello, Black Friday much, right?
Yes.
It's terrible. I mean, Rainbow Dash has been doing this all the time. It's just more pronounced now because it's directed at a single person rather than a group or a beverage.
Or a beverage, yes. Well, that just goes back to that energy that she puts into everything. And I think that's where a lot of the comedy comes from, is that we don't really see individuals put that amount of effort into such banal endeavors. But I think taking it too far in this episode is that she's so enamored with AK Yearling that she doesn't respect her. Twilight mentions near the beginning that what she probably wants most of all is respect for her privacy. And even when they're going to her house in the woods, Twilight says, well, how would she feel? We should respect her privacy. And Dash pops out of the trees and says, I think I spotted a house, and everybody runs off. And so you have a bit of that group mentality there. But yeah, Rainbow Dash loves the books, loves the writer, but doesn't respect the person.
All she cares about is what they produce.
Yeah, it's definitely showing the lack of respect as a person, however, or pony, as it were. But it shows that fans don't necessarily see them as people, mostly as product makers.
Yeah.
It's silly to think of any product producer as anything but human. I mean, Pixel Kitties is a woman, and she draws great stuff and funny stuff at that, but just a woman. I mean, Lauren Fallis, just a woman. She's not a god. She's a woman. Deserves to be treated as such.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird element in this episode because it's not the focus of the story. It's used a little bit for comic effect. It seems underutilized, but the first third of the episode really revolves around it. So it's strange that they were trying to say something, but ultimately they don't go anywhere with it.
Yeah, I mean, this is something they can kind of get away with, doing a lesson-based cartoon series for younger people.
Yeah.
Which is give people their personal space if and when they need it. And if they ask you for help, or if they look like they need help but they are too stubborn to ask, go help them.
Mm-hmm.
More than stalk them, know everything about them, and completely disrespect their personal property and their personal space. Which is what kind of the underlying message was, I think. Because that's the message we saw for the first, I would say 18 minutes, and the other 4 were completely daring to learning a lesson. But at the end, we see the lesson that Rainbow Dash is a bigger fan of herself than anyone else.
Yeah.
I've got the episode list up in front of me, and the whole issue Rainbow Dash faces with being an overbearing creeper-level fan at points is in a way touched on A Friend Indeed, where Rainbow Dash, in regards to Pinkie Pie, is kind of the opposite in that episode. She's just sitting back reading a book saying, oh yeah, Pinkie, your overbearing friendship attempts certainly can't be annoying.
Well, that's a really good observation, and I think there's a lot of overlap between the episodes, but in that episode in particular, especially with Pinkie, it's less focused and more manic. And I think that's the lesson there, is that you cannot be obsessing about any particular person or group, but you can still have too much energy for people.
Oh dear God, there are people you're just like, oh my God, they're too hyper, need to take a downer. Just like simmer down a little bit.
Well, to balance this off, I think we should mention that there is some comedy that comes up from Rainbow Dash's fangirling. When she's in the forest, she says, all right, now's your chance to win her over with your quick wit and courage. And then she pops up from the bushes and says, I am such a huge fan, and laughs awkwardly. And it's funny, it's endearing, and I think to some extent, everyone can relate to having an experience like that at one time or another.
Yeah, I think we all can a little bit. I mean, all of us have went to a con, at least a pony con. We've been standing in line before where people, Adrian Francis, Peter New, they like to walk the floor a little bit, and so do the other staffers at DHX and at Hasbro. They like to walk the floors and greet the people, greet the bronies. And there have been times where Peter New just like stops and signs a random person's shirt, and like they freak out. It's like you see them mentally preparing, like, oh my god, okay. He's just a person, and all of a sudden comes up, signs it, oh my god! It's just, but everybody's seen someone do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's nothing major. Yes, it's exciting when someone that you kind of
idolize,
comes up and greets you or has a chit chat with you. But most of these people, like most of the people that make something you like, or be it a book or whatever, they're the kind of people that want to be asked, hey, you want to come over and have a drink? Here, on me. Just like chill. Just nothing about their stuff, because they've spent J.K. Rowling, they've spent years writing those books. Don't want to hear about them again, kind of thing. Just want to shoot the breeze.
Sounds like me after editing episode audio.
Well, going from Rainbow Dash and idolizing things, I mean, her obsession really was the Daring Do character, and up until that point, that's all she was. It was a character. And in this episode, we learn the Daring Do is real, and there's some nice kind of fan forum type comments between Rainbow Dash and Twilight when this happens, where they're saying, my mind is officially blown, and oh, come on, I knew it all along. But this is a interesting change. How do you guys feel about making Daring Do, and more importantly, the Daring Do canon, a real element in the universe of the show?
Love that voice actress.
Yes, Kiara Zani, yes.
Yeah, she's got a nice tone in her voice. It's just awesome. But as far as making it canon, I don't know. I kind of like the mystery of it more than anything. It's kind of like they're just like throwing Indiana Jones at us, like, because they don't know what else to do. It's like, we can't do more Star Wars openings, so have some more Lucasfilm stuff. What next? We're gonna get like a John Williams and a symphonic orchestra inside the pony now?
Well, failing that, William Anderson did put together a fantastic score for this episode that definitely captured a number of the kind of classic adventure motifs.
I'd be okay with that, actually.
You would.
But my opinion on that, I'm a little torn, because while it's cool to see that, because I read fan fiction, yes, boo. This actually opens up a can of worms if you want to really dig down into the mythos of the pony world, if you want to say.
Just a little bit.
It just brings up, it's like, oh, all these villains she fights, oh, yeah, they're real. And, yeah, bunch of villains running around, terrorizing everyone with magical doomsday devices.
And a tiny cute cat.
We don't worry about that little demon spawn. That cat is actually a spy for Awazodal. He was actually spying on Rainbow Dash and Find a Pet.
Oh, dear God. The kitten is a spy? Nash would kill us right now.
Oh, that's okay. The kitten gets its comeuppance later in the episode.
Oh, that is definitely true, that when you have two canons colliding like this, even though the Daring Do universe isn't really fleshed out, it causes a lot of problems. And these are published books. Do you think that at some point someone would realize, wait a minute, these things are real? Or at the very least, someone in Equestria might know something about them or have mentioned at one time?
Like the god of the land, perhaps?
Maybe. Just maybe Celestia might have known something about that whole sun-cursed spell thing. But I think overall, you are opening up a can of worms by making the character a real person, because it limits the freedoms that you have in what was a fictional world, because now anything that's written has to have, or likely has, some basis in reality. And I think if they wanted to tell a Daring Do episode, they should have had it take place in Daring Do's universe. In Read It and Weep, we do jump back and forth between the fictional world and the real world where Dash is in the hospital, but it doesn't feel as disjointed because it has that element of escapism, where there's that contrast between what she's able to experience in the hospital and what she's able to experience through the book. Whereas in this episode, we jump back and forth between Rainbow Dash and Daring Do, and Rainbow Dash and the main six, and it feels a little disjointed. The main six in a lot of episodes act as a sounding board for a character, but just talking with the main six, there's really no progression. It's just a discussion of feelings. And you could still tell a Daring Do episode with the main six characters in a way, because Rainbow Dash sees herself in the Daring Do character. That's why she admires her so much to some extent, and that's why they're styled the same. They have the same eye color. In Hearthswarming Eve, we've seen the main six play different characters, so I think you could get away with the main six telling a story and putting themselves inside that story as the characters. At the end, we have Rainbow Dash kind of styled as Short Round from the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom movie. People like the Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo episodes. You could have had Rainbow Dash as Daring Do and Scootaloo as kind of the sidekick Short Round character, and still have Daring Do's character in the book learn the value of having someone to help you, having kind of a sidekick character, right? What would you guys thought if they had gone with that approach of using the main characters, but still had the episode take place solely inside the Daring Do universe?
I'm fairly sure every heart hospital in the United States would be overwhelmed.
Going back to what you said about canonizing everything now as real in the Pony universe instead of like, oh, it's just a book series. First of all, I want to point out, Rainbow Dash is on the freaking cover. That's kind of going to like get noticed by those over analytical nerds, because we kind of have like a preview of that in the nerd fight that happened in the middle of forest.
Yes.
Oh my lord. Freaking Rainbow Dash versus Twilight Sparkle. Go! Flawless victory.
If a nerd argues in a forest, does anyone hear it?
Yeah. But, yeah, we see Rainbow Dash on the cover. Couldn't that kind of blow the fact that Daring Do isn't just a fictional character to the rest of the world? And secondly, the main six have now met Daring Do in real life, and they're going to continue reading her books, which constantly put her in danger. That now transforms excitement and thrill to, oh my god, is she okay?
Not to mention, Awazodal now and the other villains know about the main six.
How could they not already? They're not that far from Ponyville and Canterlot already. I mean, Pinkie didn't run out of paint, so...
Well, according to that, it looks like they are somewhere north of the Galloping Gorge.
Galloping Gorge. Do you have a map handy?
Actually, I do. Hold on. Yes, they are somewhere between Galloping Gorge and Vancouver.
Yes, that was a nice little subtle inclusion there, I think, by the writers of the show. Oh, where does the writer of Daring Do live? Around Vancouver. Oh, I'm sorry, Vancouver.
Does she sell vacuums in her spare time?
Oh, that was terrible. Crescendo would be proud.
You know, the funny thing is, though, aren't most of the writers for the show in L.A.?
One.
Okay, well,
yeah.
let me rephrase that. Aren't most of them in the United States?
No.
Really?
Half.
Huh.
Well, canon aside, I think there's some other issues by making Daring Do a real person, because I think it takes away from the character, and that's because there's something to be said for fiction Because unless something is written to the contrary, you can fill in the gaps. You can project yourself onto a character. You have some flexibility to make them who you want them to be, rather than a real concrete entity who you just have to accept for who they are. And that makes fictional entities, which is why it's easy to do with superheroes, put them on a pedestal and accept them as being perfect. One of the first things that came to mind when they meet Daring Do in this episode is Daring Do is kind of a jerk. And I think it kind of goes along with the whole don't meet your idols saying, but even that isn't really explored in this episode. It's just kind of there.
I mean, you can meet your idols. Don't expect to sit down and have a fancy dinner with them, because, like, they don't care.
They're too busy.
Kind of. It's not that they don't care. They have stuff to do. And their everyday life gets interrupted by people like us to begin with. Like, oh my god, you're so-and-so. Can I have your autograph? You should meet my son. Let's go meet his school now.
Would you like to read my fanfic?
Well, it's more about your heroes not meeting up to the standards that are set for them. It's the same reason you can't really have a superhero in real life. It's an impossible standard. And so while it can be fun to think, wow, I wish this was real, sometimes it's for the best that it isn't.
A superhero is the ideal of perfection. It's as close to perfection as you're going to get. If there was a superhero in real life, it would make everything seem less awesome. Like, oh yeah, I went go-karting. Oh yeah, well I took a flight by myself without a plane. There goes my day.
Yes.
You know that this is a direct throwback to, hey fans, we're all people too.
But not fictional characters, not the characters you read about. I mean, that's the whole
True.
idea of headcanon. And while Season 4 is probably going to destroy a lot of headcanon, you can fill in the blanks for fictional characters, and nobody can tell you otherwise because it's simply undefined.
True. But it's also something that people take way, way too out of context to read fanfics and make up their own stuff and completely lock that into their own headcanon and force a headcanon on everything else and everyone else, including the people who created the show, which sucks. And I'm not just talking about this show. I'm also talking about like Star Trek, Babylon, all the anime you see. Everyone does it in every fandom. Or not everyone, but every fandom has it. It just kind of gets old.
Well, if you want Fanon Destroyer, just wait till next week.
Oh god, nope. I don't.
That's all I'm
I
saying.
need to go buy tissues. But anyway.
Well, like with anything, if you take it too seriously, it never really works out for the best. But you can have fun with a franchise and with its characters. And on that note, there are a lot of Indiana Jones references, this being a Daring Do episode. And I'm just wondering if there are any other references in particular that you guys wanted to discuss or talk about.
Lord of the Rings, that's a ton of rings. And they're looking for the one ring. I'm surprised we didn't see a Smeagol pony.
Oh, God.
I was actually really surprised when the ring got thrown into the fire. I was expecting runic writing to show up.
I would be surprised if there wasn't fan art of that by the end of today.
By the time this recording comes out.
Yes. But I always thought that was a reference to the bar scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where the amulet ends up in the fire.
Oh man, no. And then there was the other one. What was it? You noticed it, Ramble. The cutie marks of the thugs.
Oh yes, Megan McCarthy had actually tweeted about that. They have those Grolixes, kind of those swear words or fight symbols for cutie marks.
Yeah. What they call it? What are they called? The little clouds of dust. They fight and like scrap. It's like a backyard scrap.
Yes.
And they take all the extra stuff that you see around it and just like throw it as cutie marks. It's there's a lot of, I want to say, fantasy, like real world fantasy kind of almost throwbacks there. There's the Indiana Jones. There's the I think Lord of the Rings, with all the rings stacking up there, and then there's that tower of rings kind of looks like that child's toy where you stack the rings on the centerpiece. But as far as that, I really don't know, other than possibly a throwback to classic literature with The Cabin in the Woods. There's a few writers, I want to say Hemingway lived in a cabin in the woods near a lake.
Oh, so you're not talking about referencing anything in literature itself. You're talking about referencing, like, writers.
Actual writers in literature. Yeah, it's like Hemingway, I think it was, lived in a cabin in the woods. And I think there was an actual book called The Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it may have just fit with her character, wanting to live alone, work alone, and also having a secret identity, that she doesn't want any of her enemies to find her, which they do. Well, going on to the lesson of this episode, we have Rainbow Dash writing in the journal at the end that she was so caught up in how awesome Daring Do was, she almost forgot about how awesome she was. And I guess that's a lesson that Rainbow Dash would come up with. But we also have Daring Do learning the lesson that having a little help can be handy sometimes. There's a number of different stories going on with this episode. And do you think that it would have been more effective, lesson-wise, if they had simplified the plot and focused more on telling one story better?
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it basically had 2 lessons wrapped up into one. And one thing I gotta ask that's kind of taking this off to another part of the railway here of this discussion. Anyone think it's funny Ali Zodal had more screen time than Big Jim did as Sombra? Just saying.
Not really.
I mean, Sombra had less screen time in 2 episodes than Ali Zodal did in 1.
Sombra was supposed to be more of a, ambiguous evil.
A malevolent force. Sombra's a malevolent force. Howie Zodal is more standard villain, and he needs to be an active participant in the story, otherwise it's just henchman all the time.
Yeah, think of it like this, Draco. I just thought of something really good for how Sombra was portrayed. Think of Ganon in Zelda 2.
Oh, dear God.
Never actually shown, but everything is working according to his plan, in a way.
And well, I see what you're saying. It's more like Ganon in Zelda 1, because everything references Ganon in the instruction manual, and everything in the story references Ganon. But you never see Ganon until the very end. And yeah, I think it's a good episode, and it's got a couple lessons learned. It's just more like just a Daring Do episode more than it was a Rainbow Dash episode, because Daring Do learned the more important lesson in my viewpoint than Rainbow Dash learned.
Well, did Rainbow Dash get anything out of it? Because think about it, all she got was a book and an adventure. Daring Do got all the money.
They destroyed the ring, so I don't think there was much money in there in the first place. Which raises the question of why she didn't just destroy the one she had in the first place, but...
Yeah, or the, 10 that were on the pedestal. I'm just, saying.
Well, it's about time we got down to final thoughts and scores. Draco, would you like to go first?
Sure. Like I said, good episode. It started off like any other Rainbow Dash episode, like wake up at the crack of dawn, wake up Fluttershy, yeah, go. So I was kind of interested in seeing where they went with it. Definitely interested in the final product of the episode more than the meat and potatoes in the middle. I want to see the bottom crust of this episode pan out the way I wanted it to, which was to be an episode with a decent lesson in it rather than just an episode that wraps things up at the end kind of thing. Like, oh, well, this happened and we fixed it this way and it took all of 5 minutes because we needed filler for the other 22. And it kind of gets old when they do that. So I'm glad that the writing was really well. The musical score was kind of good. I did hear a little bit of the Indiana Jones theme, a little bit of it. So it was kind of good. So I kind of want to see more of Daring Do and how she develops now as a character, because we see Zecora and how she develops. So I don't know. I want to see that happen. We've seen Spitfire come back and develop as a person a little bit, not much. We've seen the Kingdom Crusaders develop, even though we haven't seen much of them lately.
Soon.
It's going to be a good season, I think. And this episode in particular was pretty good. I want to say it's a little bit better than last week's. It's kind of hard for me to do scoring. I did it once before these reviews. It's been a while since I did one of these. And for my show, I don't even do scoring reviews because I feel that there's too much taken into consideration and scoring is too personal. But for me personally, I want to give this 4.5 short rounds.
Now, I have to partially disagree on at least the scoring. While I liked all the references, the pacing kind of fell flat at points. Namely, every time there was an exposition between the ponies.
Nerd fight!
Yeah, pretty much. There were some definite cringe moments and definitely some meme fuel for this little fandom of ours, namely that face.
Oh, that face.
You know, I'm not going to go into a 2 or 3 minute discussion, but overall, the episode was okay. I'm probably going to catch flack for this statement, but definitely one of Dave Polsky's stronger episodes, but definitely the weakest episode of the season. For me, when I came to scoring this one, like I said, I liked the episode, but it is the weakest of the season thus far, in my opinion, so I'm gonna have to give it 3 rings to rule them all.
Okay. Well, I agree with you guys on a number of points. Draco, I agree the music was fantastic for this episode. Some of the Indiana Jones sound-alikes. William Anderson did a terrific job. Vyraal, I agree the pacing was off in a lot of places. Whenever the main 6 just decide to appear and say, Rainbow Dash, let's talk about your feelings, that really takes us out of the adventure theme of the episode. And in a number of places, Rainbow Dash's character is really off. Like when she just decides to up and abandon Daring Do when she's captured. I mean, element of loyalty, people, right?
Pickamina kind of, sort of doesn't do laughter. So, I mean, every one of these characters seems to have like one of those moments. So,
well, that's true. That's true. I like a lot of the references they have put in. In Dave Polsky's live tweet, he mentions that the AK Yearling is not just a takeoff of J.K. Rowling, but also their own Amy Keating Rogers, the writer for the show. I like a lot of the Indiana Jones references. I think the 3 characters that ransack Yearling's house are the 3 characters that the young Indiana Jones encounters in the opening to The Last Crusade. I like Cabaleron. He's a good homage to the Belloc character from Raiders of the Lost Ark. But ultimately, I don't think these references carry the episode. I think it made a number of questionable choices, and I'm not sure how well it's going to hold up on repeat viewings in the future. I'm going to have to give this episode a 3 out of 5.
I think I scored it high myself, mainly because the disappointment and then it seemed like the depression it caused in Rainbow Dash kind of hit home for me. So I thought that was kind of another underlying message for people, like, don't put people up too high or get disappointed, and sometimes depression kind of kicks it into overdrive.
Yeah.
Because she kind of went from manic. She kind of went manic on us there. She went from being super high to super low really quick.
Little Pinkamina.
But I think that's why I personally scored it high. But, you know, you guys, we are different people. We don't hate each other. Well, I hate Vyraal, but that's another story.
See ya on the episode.
Yeah. So that about wraps it up. Joining me again today from the Blue Screen Bronies were Draco.
Hey.
And Vyraal.
Yo.
Thank you again for joining us.
No problem. Oh, and don't forget that I am the lead and Vyraal is the co-host for Blue Screen Bronies, a gaming podcast on Everfree Network. We are the longest running gaming podcast. We talk about mainstream games and the pony games of the fandom. Tune in on Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll either have a live or recorded show depending on how much I work during the week.
Seriously, if you haven't seen their show yet, go and check it out. Join us next week for a review of Season 4, Episode 5, Flight to the Finish. For EFN Presents, I'm Ramble. Thanks for watching.